Hey, people. Since my last figure review did so well, I figured it would be time to make another one of another Konosuba character, but this time it's a scale figure of one of my favorites. Now, if you know Konosuba, of the main three girls, your favorite is probably going to be Megumin. Or you're suffering from the common physical disability scientifically known as a craniorectal inversion. However, outside of the immediate main cast, I definitely put Wiz right there up next to Best Girl, mainly because she's got real big heart. She's supposed to be like your typical RPG shopkeeper trope, and she's also an undead lich in disguise, but she's just like nice and pleasant and enjoyable, which is the main reason she stuck out to me in a show where every character is supposed to be like a giant headache or a nuisance. Like, I get that's the point of the show, and Wiz does have her quirks and moments, but I still can't help but find her adorable and like generally refreshing. She's just like nice. I don't know. I know comparing anime and manga to their Western counterparts is like comparing a hot and ready pizza to a toenail, but I've seen so many Western pieces of media where they just write women characters as men with boobs, mostly as a way to show up the male characters to put them in their place, and the writers just kind of pat themselves on the back for being subversive and empowering. Or they write these characters who are just awful that no one with a functioning brain would care about or like, but because it's some author's self-insert or a mouthpiece for some social justice talking point, the main character, and by proxy you, should just accept that they're a horrible, awful person and totally excuse them for being a shithead. In fact, you should be checking your own attitude, because how dare you call them out for being a literal sociopath. Wiz isn't like that though. She's shown to be way more competent than the main cast at like magic and fighting, but she's not snarky about it. She definitely doesn't throw it at anyone's face, or she doesn't brag about it. She's also just a really massive sweetheart and is always well-meaning despite it not always working out. I'd be more than willing to pour a couple of cups of tea and sit down with her while we watch the trees shift in the breeze and the clouds move across the sky. I'd also like to suck on her fat, massive, swollen, bouncy boobies until whatever the hell comes out of ghost boobs comes squirting out all over my face. It wouldn't be milk, would it? She's undead. Maybe it'd be like ectoplasm, or maybe it's like dust in a worst case scenario. Or maybe it would be milk, but it's the special kind that you can only seem to find in the stores around Halloween time.
Is this a milked ghost or a squozen ghost?
It was definitely a squozen ghost.
They like wring the ghost out over a bucket?
Oh yeah, they squozed it out. Sorry, thank you.
Try some. See what you think. But as much as I'd like to continue the discussion on what kinds of sexual fluids I could extract from Wiz, we have a bigger problem. While Konosuba isn't on every normie's list of what anime they watch on Netflix or Crunchyroll, it's still a really popular series that has a lot more brand power than some of the shit that comes and goes for a season. And Wiz, despite being a side character, is still a pretty well-known and recognizable part of the show. I actually thought at some point she'd be joining up with the main cast. She's, got that whole 70-20-10 thing going on with her design. Yet despite being a story-critical character in both seasons 1 and 2, a main character for one of the 2 OVA episodes, and a plot-critical character in the movie, in 5 years, we haven't gotten a single commercially available figure of Wiz. No Figma, no Nendoroid, no scale, no prize, no trading, no noodle stopper, nothing. Now, you might be going, well, duh, Weeaboo, she's only a side character. Why the hell would she get a full-scale figure? But Eris got a scale figure way early in the first season of the show, and she's about on par, or even less story relevant than Wiz. But even worse, they made a scale of the damn lolly succubus, who from the time she appears on screen to when she escapes from the main cast and is never seen again, has a total appearance time of under 3 minutes. Yeah, I timed it. I mean, it's a fantastic bit and a really memorable part of the show, but like, come the fuck on, are you kidding me? The only goods available for Wiz are like the typical promo style goods, you know, like 90% of it being stuff like acrylic stands, you know, keychains, and like other miscellaneous trinkets that the production committee just endlessly pumps out. And even then, most of it is of the main cast. She's only there just to fill out the roster. It's been a pretty tough break of it for Wiz fans, or Wizziez as we refer to ourselves in the privacy of our own homes. Not to be confused with the gone yet forgotten local anime store known as Wizziez, which I'm reminded of every time I say the word Wizzy, which just makes being a Wizzy even more sad. That wasn't until last year when out of fucking nowhere the announcement for a 7th scale Wiz figure popped up on Twitter and my figure collection, brought to you once again by everyone's favorite, well, almost. Good Smile is just distributing the figure, not actually making it. You can buy it on the Good Smile website, and I'm pretty sure they help with the promotion or sales or something like that. Which means one of a few things happened. Either this microscopic new figure company got the rights to make Wiz and sought out Good Smile as a distribution partner, or Good Smile always had the rights and just never cared or took a chance until a budget subcontractor came along and expressed interest in the project. Either way, it seems like a pretty enticing deal for Good Smile because they can take all the credit if it works out, or shift the blame if it goes south. And all of this culminated in the 1/7 scale Wiz, brought to you really by a company called Helios, with a whopping portfolio consisting of 4 figures, 2 of which aren't even out yet. First figure being some Shaman King character that I didn't get far enough in the show to see, who was so well received that you could find her in the Amy bargain bin for 50% off. The second being Best Girl Wiz, which we'll get to, I promise. And the other 2 being future releases, one of them being from some anime by the guy who made Master Tagaki, and I only know that because of that Japanese man Yuta. And the other being a character from Shangri-La Frontier, which has a Birdman on the cover. Having a company with literally 4 figures to their name work on the first and only Wiz figure isn't exactly confidence inspiring. And unsurprisingly, I'm not the only one that thinks that. The initial reaction by the figure community went a little something like this. But even still, it's a Wiz figure, so despite all the red flags, I made a pre-order. I already got burned the last time I bulked on a figure based on the company making it. Also, the yen was getting way weaker at the time, so I knew the price I paid would probably be way more reasonable than the list price of 1,100 yen. And then I got to play the waiting game for like 10 months. For her to get over here on a slow-ass boat. And I gotta be honest, when she did finally get here, the first impression wasn't terrible. She comes in one of these really cool plastic boxes that also conveniently slices off your fingers if you open it wrong. Now, these boxes do cost more money to make than a standard cardboard box does, so I appreciate the noble attempt to go out of the way and make the figure feel a bit more premium. I just wish more of that effort went into the actual figure itself because, man, she's Wiz, but ooh, she's rough. Fuck me, where do I even start with this? The pose, I was okay with. I know some people had some complaints, and it's not the best choice, but it does suit the character. The face also isn't amazing either, but again, it does suit the character. I think maybe this could have been met halfway by making the figure have multiple faceplates, and I'd rather have the manufacturing budget go to that instead of shit like this plastic box. On the subject of the sculpt, there are multiple areas that kind of stand out, and I don't mean in a good way. The first thing that looked bad to me in the promo photos was this belt that clearly looks like where they tried to hide the 2 parts of the figure being joined together. And man, did they not fix that at all. Her lower half is also weirdly bigger than her top half, which kind of gives her this inverse mushroom ass. Now, normally I'd consider that a feature rather than a bug, but if you look closely, it looks like they just scaled the bottom half of the figure up in Blender or whatever, without changing the belt to make it look like she's actually wearing it. Instead, it makes it look like her robe suddenly has like 40% more padding or volume, and the belt is pushing it inwards to fit to her body shape. Now, Wiz's hair is actually really well detailed and dynamic looking here, but it doesn't match the pose all that great. The flow of her hair doesn't really indicate a very clear direction of wind or movement. and it just kind of looks like really bad bedhead with part of it being blown to the side. You can kind of observe with the bend of her torso that she's sort of swaying to the left, kind of like she's getting kicked in a fighting game, but I don't think they exaggerated the movement enough for either the hair or the torso to give it the desired effect. I don't think I didn't notice this lone strand of hair crudely smeared onto her like a wet noodle. All of the gold parts look bad. They're raised, but they kind of have this gummy, inorganic feel to them, which I'm not a huge fan of. I would have rather them either be screened on or have them be a sharp raised, like super like square detail. I actually think gummy is a good description of her whole outfit. A lot of the drapery folds don't really look that great. The boob window area looks particularly bad with the drapery of her outfit warping around her in a really unnatural and weird way. In fact, a lot of the cloth folds just look made up and wrong, like it's wet clay. You could make the argument that it's because Wiz's outfit is made of thicker fabric and wouldn't show a ton of cloth folds, but even then a lot of them just lack the physics and details you would see normally. It makes me wonder if they took any real life reference photos to make this with. I can't imagine it would have been that hard to buy a bathrobe and take a picture while they got a fan blowing. Now, like any degenerate, I did get curious about the details that the Public Morals Committee might not necessarily want you to see, and you can see up her skirt pretty easily if you just remove the base. Well, goddamn, she's either got the puffiest on earth, or she's secretly got a massive fuda, and that just means I might have accidentally spoiled myself on the show. God damn it. It wouldn't be the first time it happened in Konosuba. But the most offensive part of the sculpture, in my opinion, is the nose. From the front, it's barely noticeable like some figures, but then you turn it to the side and holy, what the fuck is this? She looks like she's got a beak. No human nose is shaped like this. She doesn't even have lips. It just goes right from nose to mouth. Like, did someone at Helios or Good Smell not see this? Or did they all just decided to collectively not give a fuck about it? Even the cheapest, shittiest prize figures get this right. Like, I can forgive a lot of this other stuff. A lot of it is just nitpicks, but this, I'm drawing the line here. This blows. Not of her nose, mind you. She clearly doesn't have any nostrils. And good God, we haven't even gotten onto the paint job yet. It's completely inconsistent. There's like this really amateurish shading on the light colored blouse here. And there is a slight gradation on the hair, probably thanks to Good Smile and their gradations. But on the cloak and other parts of her, it's almost like she's completely a solid color. Now, to give Helios a bit of slack here, nothing looks mispainted or defective on mine, and to be honest, I'd rather have a simpler figure done well than a complex figure done bad, but you know, your mileage may vary on that. The material they use for this skin kind of gives me a lot of mixed feelings as well. It's slightly transparent and has this sort of matte feel to it, which gives this figure this really pale and dull look. Now, this might be the biggest deep cut I think I've seen with a figure where Wiz, who's an undead in the show, accidentally gets purified from time to time and starts to disappear, which would be an amazing reference, but I don't think that's what was intended. And even if it was, with the way it's done, I just don't think it looks that great. Her face gets lost in shadow a lot due to the sculpt, and it just makes the figure have this really unappealing look to it, which makes this what I think is the first figure where I've had to put lights on it in order to get it to look good and proper. Like, yeah, that would make any figure look better, but it's not like a necessity. At least not before. Finally, the base. It's a clear disc. It's nothing. It's boring. It's there. It's fine. You know, a lot of figures I have seem to have this clear base thing going on. And I get that having sculpted bases can make a figure way more expensive, but like, come on, how hard is it to screen some tiny detail or design on it? Just the littlest thing could make this figure go a long way. However, I think I'm alone on that one though. A lot of people seem to prefer clear bases, mostly for figure photography purposes. I think on a shelf it just looks so boring though. It's one of the reasons why I actually like the pop-up parade bases. Yeah, sure, the shape is a bit weird, but it's different, it's colorful, it looks fun on a shelf, it stands out. But no matter what kind of base you have, the figure better fit, which this one actually almost didn't do at first.
So I'm putting the Wiz figure together, and her feet don't line up with the base, which means that she either shrunk in the time that fucking goddamn it train. But yeah, her feet don't fit in the pegs, which is it's gonna be a problem.
Thankfully, I just had to spread the legs a bit, but I was afraid she might have shrunk in shipping, and after waiting so long and paying up for any figure, the last thing you want to have is for it to break because the figure decides it wants to be a finicky bitch. Oh, wait a minute, this one does have some stuff on there. It's really small, it's just some of the licensing information, but wait, what? 2019? Does this mean that this figure has been in the works potentially since 2019, and this is what we got? Are you fucking kidding me? I think the only thing redeeming about this figure on first glance is the price I paid for it, but like with the mediocre execution, I don't even think the price of entry is worth it at all. I have bought way better looking figures for like similar prices, like this Shamiko from Kotobukiya, or hell, even the Lolly Succubus is way better done than Wiz here, which kind of blows because that means the only redeeming quality of this figure is that it's Wiz and it's the only one. But even then, am I going to be happy seeing my favorite character on the shelf and it looks like this? No, I'm not. I'm not. Sorry. Look, I don't mean to rip into Helios or make it seem like I'm trying to attack them. Like any creative commercial scale endeavor, there's a lot of hardship and expenses along the way that most people, even creatives from other industries like myself, would have no idea or even know about or be able to even imagine unless you've had it happen to you before.
11 times, as a matter of fact.
And it's not like I could do a better job at my figure making level either, which happens to be 0. I just think it's clear that Helios wasn't the right company for the job. With their lack of experience and skills compared to other figure makers, I'd say that they should stick to obscure and seasonal characters like these 3, but for all I know, to someone else, these characters could be their absolute favorite, and they couldn't give 2 shits about Wiz. Which sucks because that might lead to the same bad experience of their favorite character getting butchered and having to pay for the privilege. I can't even be too mad at Helios because it's clear that they're very new to this. And if you look at the next 2 figures they're working on, it seems like they made improvements in response to criticisms that I had before I even made this video, like the inclusion of having multiple faces for their next 2 figures. I just wish they did it for the character that I actually cared about. I'm really more mad at Good Smile since they seem to be working with this company to get this figure out there. Like there's a landing page for it on the official website. Could you guys not like help them out or give them some advice or anything? Like, how hard would it have been for one person from Good Smile to just pop over to Helios and go, "Hey guys, everything going okay?"
Fuck you, you just got pranked. Yow!
But that opinion and attitude is based a lot on the assumptions of how the whole business deal went down to make this figure. And truthfully, we don't know anything about that and probably never will. I wouldn't recommend this figure unless you yourself are a hardcore Wizzy in your own right. I think once again, if the price was a lot lower, I'd feel way better about my purchase and even more likely to recommend it. But even then, the execution on this figure is just awful. It's like low-end prize figure level bad. But the worst thing about this whole shit show is now I have this fear that because Good Smile and Helios shit the bed so hard with this figure, they'll just go, "Oh, well, nobody likes Wiz, so we won't just ever make a figure of her again," and give up. Completely missing the point that they failed because they fucked up, and that people weren't going to cover for them shitting in their own mouths by buying this mediocre figure. Even though I did. And I think that's the big tragedy of this whole situation. Figures are just hunks of plastic, but it's what they represent that can really mean something and be special to people. They're a symbol of passion and joy and can represent you and your tastes in so many ways without a single word. While finally having a figure of Wiz on my shelf and looking at her is going to make me excited and happy, or I might even crack a snicker as I remember the show, I'm also going to remember all the flaws in the sculpt and the coloring, that damn nose, raining on my parade, being a reminder of mixed feelings and bitter sweetness, eating a $5 pizza and shitting liquid 5 hours later. Yeah, maybe that's a bit melodramatic. Despite everything, I'd be lying if I said that this figure didn't bring me some amount of joy. Despite its glaring and obvious even to non-figure snob flaws, it may very well be the first and only Wiz figure we get, so even if there are things about it that are pretty objectively terrible, I don't fully regret my purchase. As for Helios themselves, I hope they continue to make more figures and learn a lot and grow along the way, and maybe someday they'll work on another character series that I love, and it'll be an amazing figure, representative of all their hard work and accomplishments, worthy of praise from everyone that collects figures. But that's not what this shit is, like not at all. Not even close. So us Wizzies get to continue to wait until someone else comes along and does it right. I give it 5 boobies out of 11,780 yen.
Shadow Wizard Money Gang. We love casting spells. This song is sponsored by the Shadow Government.